hello and welcome back to my channel. This isn't my usual like happy sort of crafty video or cute video with my little corgis or anything. This is like kind of like an open diary in a way. I just want to like talk about what's going on. I've had some pretty like big health news come up and I can't talk about it really with many people. I want to talk about it here in case anyone listening has gone through the same thing, and just so that you know that you're not alone, because I feel very alone, and this is, I guess, like a way for me to connect with other people as well. Maybe this video can be like a place where we all sort of connect with each other if you've been through it too. Trigger warnings for this video: we're talking about mental health, depression, anxiety. We might be talking about some blood, periods. We're also talking about endometriosis and adenomyosis. So if any of those things trigger you, maybe this isn't the video for you. Let's get into it. I'll explain what's going on. Maybe my story is similar to yours. Maybe you can relate if you've had these issues. So basically, I want to talk about endometriosis and also adenomyosis. So I'm going to go way back to the start. When I was like a young teenager having my first periods, they were like unbearably painful. Like I remember the last 2 periods before I went on the pill, I had to go down to the doctors and they gave me like an injection of morphine for how bad the pain was. And like I really couldn't stand it. I was like shaking and like I couldn't sit still, but I couldn't move around. So I was kind of like in this like, I can't sit still, I have to move, it's too painful. And then I'd like run to the toilet and vomit. So that was like my experience of like my last 2 periods as a teenager before I went on the pill, and it was pretty bad. And back then they suspected endometriosis, so I always knew that growing up from then on that I probably have endometriosis, but I was on the pill, so like luckily it didn't bother me on the pill. And then fast forward 10 years on the pill, I got my first migraine, and it was like a visual ocular migraine. So it was one of those ones where I think I had like some spazzy lines, but the weirdest part for me was like I could put my left hand out like this and I legitimately could not see it in my eyesight. Like a part of my vision was missing and my brain was just like filling it in with what was around. But like if I just moved my hand across, it'd disappear, reappear. Like it was so weird. So that was obviously scary. So I went to the doctor, I told my doctor about it, and she was like, well, you're gonna have to come off the pill immediately, because apparently when you're on the pill and you start to get a migraine, this is like a good lesson for all you guys out there who take the pill. If you get a migraine, talk to your doctor immediately, because I don't think you can be on the pill any longer if you get a migraine, especially an ocular one. I'm not sure if there's certain types of migraines where you can stay on the pill, but from my experience and from what my doctor said, if you get a migraine, you can no longer be on the pill because you have an increased chance of having a stroke. So she was like, you can't be on the pill anymore. And I was like, oh, okay. And then I was really scared because obviously I remembered back to before I was on the pill and I had those really awful periods. I was thinking, oh my God, the pain is going to be awful. So I decided to start investigating finally, like what it is. Is it endometriosis, as I've always been told? Like, let's get to the bottom of this. I ended up going to see a gynecologist. I got booked to do a laparoscopy, I might be saying that word wrong, to basically diagnose if I have endometriosis and to also cut it out if she finds any endometriosis in there. So I did the surgery, she found endometriosis, she graded me a 2 out of 4. So I was in the moderate range. I think she cut out like 7 little lesions. One of them was like a little bit bigger than the others, like, I don't know, 2 centimeters on my pouch of Douglas. Using all the medical words. There was some on my bladder and my bowel, and that's mostly where it was found.
Editing Maddie popping in just to give a proper definition about what endometriosis is. I found this definition on the Nancy's Nook website. I trust them because they always fact check their sources. Endometriosis is characterized by the presence of tissue similar to the lining of the uterus, endometrial-like, located outside the uterus. These fragments are different structurally and behave differently from the normal endometrium, which is shed during a period. This tissue causes pain, infertility, and organ dysfunction due to inflammation, invasion into structures in the body, and scar tissue. Endometriosis impacts approximately 1 in 10 individuals assigned female at birth and is rare in individuals assigned male at birth. Symptoms are often dismissed as bad cramps, leading to an average 10-year delay in diagnosis. Definition: endometriosis is defined as the presence of endometrial glands and stroma-like lesions outside of the uterus.
I guess the annoying thing with this type of illness, endometriosis, is that you can't actually be properly diagnosed until you have a surgery. That's quite confronting, I think, for some people. It was for me. Like, it's quite invasive, but I was grateful to have what endometriosis was there removed. Coming off the pill, in terms of pain, my pain didn't amp up too much at the start from coming off the pill, and after the surgery I actually had more pain, but it was in my bowel, which is weird. And I've since been like doing my own research and stuff, and I found that scar tissue can actually cause pain as well. So it's kind of like with endometriosis, like your only options really are like hormonal birth control, which can sort of mess people up, and by that I mean cause like mental health issues and all these other kinds of stuff. I just feel like there should be a better way. I know we're lucky to have these options, but it just feels like, could we have some better options? Speaking about mental health too, I have struggled with depression and anxiety, and when I came off the pill, I actually was a lot brighter and happier as a person, and I realized that a lot of my depression was contributed by the pill. So that was kind of sucky as well, because I mean, not all women are affected by the pill in this way, but when you like start reading online, you do see like a lot of women's stories saying like their mental health declined, or all these other issues that can happen on the pill, or the Mirena, or the depot shot, or like all these different like hormonal birth control things. They're just they have a place, and it's good, because I mean, if I wasn't on the pill for those 10 years, I know I would have been having constant surgeries for my endometriosis, and I know that I would have been in a lot of pain. So it's kind of like a trade-off, like you're trading like pain for mental health. Like, it's kind of like, which pill do you swallow kind of thing. I explained to you guys that I had the endometriosis surgery, and I remember at the time I even asked my surgeon. I was googling like everything about endometriosis. I was trying to get really educated, and I discovered adenomyosis, and I emailed my surgeon and I was like, could I possibly have adenomyosis? Oh, and that was another thing with the surgery. Because I came off the pill, they were like, okay, let's give you a different kind of birth control. We're going to give you the Mirena IUD. So I had the Mirena IUD inserted into my uterus during the time of my endometriosis surgery, and that was supposed to be like an alternative from, if you've had a migraine on the pill, you can use this form of birth control. So I had that put in at the time of surgery, and then after my surgery, like I said, I didn't feel like my bowel got any better. I was still feeling like pain. Also, I had never felt so depressed on the Mirena IUD, like instant depression. It was really, really bad, like so bad that I was having very dark thoughts that weren't normal for me, and I was also bleeding a lot, like more than I've ever bled, like really big clots. Like, it was really alarming for me. And then I started googling like Mirena IUD. My surgeon didn't tell me any of this, but like, well, she did sort of, but she didn't make it seem very bad, that you can bleed up to 6 months on the Mirena IUD, like constant, like it doesn't let up, and then after that time all your periods go away. Like, I don't know, that doesn't really seem like a good option, does it? Like all that blood loss and stuff. So I was googling Mirena IUD, I was finding all these horror stories. I even joined a Mirena IUD support group, and they were just all horror stories as well. And I was like taking into account how I was feeling as well. I wasn't just listening to everyone on the internet, although it was freaking me out a bit. I was listening to my own body. I was feeling very depressed. I was having these really dark thoughts. I could also feel the Mirena IUD in, like I could constantly feel it. I was bleeding like crazy. I was having huge clots, and after a week I just begged my doctor. I was like, please take this out of me. I do not want it in. I feel so sick, like I feel awful. Thank goodness she took it out. So I only had the Mirena IUD in for a week. But yeah, that sort of left me with no other real good options in terms of like halting the endometriosis from growing and halting periods. And I'm not even entirely sure when I say like halting the endometriosis from growing, like I think like the pill and all those hormonal birth controls do slow that down. I'm not gonna say like definitely it halts it, but I think like it kind of does in a way. Like it definitely helps. Definitely like prevented a lot of symptoms for me when I was on the pill. So with that story, I have stopped taking the pill after 10 years. Pretty much after like a few months, I'd say like 6 months, I finally had that surgery. And I had the Mirena IUD in, placed in for a week, then taken out, and then I was just sort of left to my own devices. I was like, what am I gonna do? I actually started looking up like women's fertility and temperature tracking and stuff like that, so you can see like when you're ovulating, and it sort of gives you a good idea of like how your cycle's going. So to help me with all that temperature tracking and all that stuff, I bought a Daisy. It's actually really good. But disclaimer, this is not an ad for it or anything, I just really like it. But it's really good. Like you literally just, as you wake up, like as you start to wake up, you just pop it in your mouth and it takes your temperature, and then you like set it aside, you can go back to sleep. And it tells you like your luteal phase and like how long your period is. It tells you when you ovulated, so you can like use that to like avoid having a baby or to have a baby, which is pretty cool. Oh yeah, I used Clue as well to track my periods, because with the Daisy you're only supposed to like mark in your periods when you have like fresh blood, but with Clue you can mark in like spotting days as well. So I find that handy to have like both sort of marked in, so I have like a record. So after hormonal birth control wasn't an option anymore, I was just basically left with learning all I could about the menstrual cycle and learning about temperature tracking and all these things. And I thought, this is good, I'm feeling better mentally, like I'm not having all these hormones that aren't mine put into my body and changing my mood. And I started to feel a lot better, and I started to feel like I was taking back control by doing the tracking every day, and that made me feel good. But now I have a bigger problem. So this is like mainly the point that I'm getting to with this video. 3 years passed since that initial endometriosis surgery, and I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to go back and get another surgery because the pain was getting pretty bad again. And I knew it was getting bad because I finally vomited in the toilet basically. And I was like, this isn't good, I don't want to be back here. But in the meantime as well, in case you're curious, I was treating my pain with Ponstan. So I don't know if you guys have Ponstan where you live. We have Ponstan in Australia. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Ponstan is a Nurofen that targets like the uterus, and it stops cramping in the uterus specifically. I started googling like new surgeons to see, because just mainly because of the pain that I had after my initial surgery in my bowel. I was kind of like, don't know if I trust this surgeon anymore. And also looking back even now, like I originally asked her what is adenomyosis after my surgery, and she was like, oh, like it doesn't really matter, you have a Mirena IUD anyway and that's the treatment for it. So she didn't really explain what it was, or like let's investigate further and see if we can figure it out or anything like that. This time I want to see someone different. I want to see like the best in the field. I want to get like the best opinion. So I went on all these like endometriosis support groups. If you guys are looking for resources, Nancy's Nook is very helpful. They have like a really good support group there and really good information. It's a Facebook page and I think it's also a website. So just search Nancy's Nook. I might link it down below. It helped me in finding my current specialist slash surgeon that I saw just recently. Also, if you're in Australia, let me find the other support groups. If you're in Australia and New Zealand, I think, you can go on Facebook, Endometriosis Australia Education and Discussion Group and Adenomyosis Support Group Australia and New Zealand. I found this surgeon and I made an appointment, and it took me 2 months to actually have the appointment with him. And in the meantime, I had to do this invasive ultrasound slash scan kind of thing. And basically it was a vaginal ultrasound where they were looking for endometriosis and adenomyosis. When she was going through and looking for everything, she found adenomyosis, which sucks. And at the time when she was saying like, oh yep, like I'm seeing like adenomyosis, I was kind of like, what? Like, I didn't really know what it was. I'd looked up a lot about endometriosis and I had seen the word adenomyosis, hence me asking my previous surgeon what it was, but she didn't tell me about it. I kind of like didn't look into it myself. I was like, I would see women post about it and I would like kind of read their stories and be like, oh, like that kind of sucks, like I feel so sorry for them. But I was also like, I'm glad that's not me, like I'm glad I just have endometriosis. It always seemed like they were struggling a lot more. She didn't actually find any endometriosis. That doesn't mean that it's not there. Apparently recently their like ultrasound equipment and stuff, like technology has increased to the point where you can actually see endometriosis now. Like apparently 10 years ago you couldn't see it on an ultrasound, but now you can if it's like big enough. So, and some of the tiny little ones, like really small, they can be just as painful, but the ultrasound can't pick that up yet. I had my husband Ryan with me during the ultrasound and I basically just cried in the car after it, and he consoled me, and we were both like frantically Googling like what is adenomyosis.
Hello again, I'm just popping in to give a proper definition of what adenomyosis is. This definition was also found on the Nancy's Nook website. What is adenomyosis? Adenomyosis can be another cause of chronic pelvic pain. Adenomyosis is a condition where tissue like the lining of the uterus invades the muscle of the uterus. It can be either diffuse or focal, meaning it can spread out over the uterus or can be grouped together. The symptoms of adenomyosis can include heavy menstrual bleeding, painful periods and menstrual cramps, abnormal uterine bleeding, bloating, pain with sex, before, during, and/or after, pelvic pain, infertility, miscarriage. Many of these symptoms overlap with endometriosis. However, there are differences between the two that leave researchers concluding that adenomyosis is its own separate disease process from endometriosis.
But basically this condition continues to progress over your life until basically you're in agony. Oh, do you want to know what the cure for it is? This is the part where everything changes. The cure for it is to have a hysterectomy, which means removing the whole uterus out of your body. And obviously, most women or people haven't had kids yet, or they still want to have kids, they want to have more kids. So the uterus is like quite vital in having a family. So unless you've like completed your family and you're done, this is like quite a confusing and awful condition to have. I had that ultrasound, found out I had adenomyosis. I was like, cool, but also not cool. Let's cry about it. Let's Google it. Let's like join a support group, which I've linked them below now. I tried to learn everything I could about it. And then I had my specialist appointment, and he was saying, he was very nice, and he was also, he didn't sugarcoat things. Like, he was very nice. He didn't say things in a mean way either. He was just like being quite forward. And he was saying, you have adenomyosis. And I was like, yep. And he was like, tell me what you know, tell me what you learned about it. And I was telling him, he's like, yep, that's correct. Because I joined, so it was like a Zoom. It was like a Zoom telehealth call, because obviously things with everything in the world right now, it was online and not in person. So I had Ryan in this actual very room with me, and we were talking. It was like, you guys, like, if you want to start a family, you guys are going to have to do it in the next 6 months. Like, within the next 6 months is what he said. He said, if you guys want to start your family, you need to do it within the next 6 months to a year. And he was like, you know, he was very clear that it was like within the next 6 months, which is why I keep like saying it, because for me it's hard to believe too. And he was like, you can't leave it longer than a year, and if you're not ready to go yet, you will need to freeze your eggs. And even if you freeze your eggs, that might not work, because your uterus is going to continue to degrade and it's not going to be able to hold a baby. Which, you know, this is quite shocking for me listening to and hearing, but I'm glad he said it. And he was like, do you want kids? Like, we're both like, yep. He's like, well, you gotta have them now. And we were like, whoa. Ryan and I, we've always wanted kids, and we've always wanted them when we were like younger. But over the last like few years, like I mentioned earlier, like I had a lot of depression for like 10 years being on the pill. And even before then, you know, I've struggled with this sort of stuff my whole life. So over the years of knowing Ryan, actually, has been the happiest times of my life. Just a few years ago, I think maybe, I don't know how many years ago now, like 3 or 4 years ago, I said to Ryan, look, I don't want to have kids earlier anymore. I want to wait. I want to like sort out my own business. I want to like get some more expenses behind us, you know, have like a little nest egg. And then to hear the specialist say, well, actually, you need to start having kids if you want them. You need to start having kids now because you have adenomyosis. And I was like, how bad is it? And he was like, you know, if it's showing up on the ultrasound, then it's probably moderate. Like, it's probably not that good. Like, you really need to take this serious. Yeah, so like, I'm like, okay, in 3 months, I'm going to do all of the things. And then after 3 months, basically, we're going to start trying. So when I'm filming this video right now, it has been 3 weeks since my specialist appointment, and I have gotten pre-pregnancy bloods. I found out that I needed an MMR vaccine, so I just did that. Apparently you can't get pregnant for a month after that. That's okay, because I didn't want to start trying until 3 months anyway. Also gotten a dentist appointment coming up. I've done my skin check because that was like due. So I'll have like all of my health things ticked off. The pre-pregnancy blood test came back really well. I don't have any like iron deficiencies or anything like that, so it was just I needed a booster for MMR vaccination. If you heard that noise, that was a cat. Like, for me, tried to process it by being proactive. So I started Googling like all the things I need to do before pregnancy. I've found out like what supplement to start taking before like getting pregnant. My specialist recommended Elevate, so I will start taking that. But basically, what I really wanted to get on here and talk about was like that part of it all. It was like learning about the adenomyosis. It was like being told you need to have kids earlier than you wanted. Honestly, that really sucked, and this is really why I'm making the video, because I'm sure there's like people out there like me who have been told this thing, and it really sucks. To go from having like your life sort of figured out and being like, okay, I have these plans, I'm like gonna do all this stuff, like kids are gonna come a bit later, but like that's all good, to being like, okay, you need to have them right now. You basically don't really have a choice. Like, I know it is my choice, because it is my choice in a way, because it is my choice to want to have a family. It's just that these are now like the rules and limitations placed on me. You kind of have to spin it in that way for your brain to make it feel okay. I feel like you have to be like, okay, this is like the hand I'm dealt with, and it's not happening at the time that I want, but this is the time it has to happen. With this condition as well, like, I feel upset because like way back 3 years ago when I asked my previous surgeon, what is adenomyosis? Could I have it? And she was like, it doesn't matter because you have an IUD. What if I had learnt about it back then, you know? Like, it would have been really good to have that ultrasound and to know and to like maybe be better prepared. Like, I'm not sure if it would have changed anything because right now, like, I don't know how hard it will be to get pregnant. So if it is hard because of this condition, then I think I'll definitely feel like, oh, why didn't I find this out sooner? Why didn't she get me to do this like ultrasound? Those 3 years could have been my only chance of having like kids. Right now, like my new specialist, he seems to think I'll have like a good chance of having like the first kid. But he says just to take it like one kid at a time. And even that's hard because you do, as you grow up, sort of like think about how many kids that you might want to have. And for me, like that was always at least 2, like ideally 3, maybe 4. But now I don't really get to be that choosy, I guess. And it's kind of a weird thing to say because the more you grow up and the more you learn about like fertility and things like that, you realize it doesn't really go the way you plan it to go anyway for most people. I guess in that way, like you can't plan it, you can't stress too much. But just to have that like extra limitation thrown at me, like, okay, my uterus is gonna keep getting worse, so I need to do this right now. That's maybe my only shot. Hopefully not. Hopefully like I'll be able to have like at least 3 kids. I don't know. Who knows? Because even then, like maybe the pain will be really bad. Adenomyosis can also increase miscarriage and preterm labor. Although my specialist said like the chance of miscarriage is only increased by 2%. So that's good. And I think he was referring to my age group and with how much my endometriosis has progressed at this time. So I'm not sure if that 2% increase is for everyone in general or just for like me and my current situation right now. So take that with a grain of salt, like do your own research, but like also don't freak out too much because I know everywhere on the internet it says increased risk of miscarriage and like it might not actually be that much for you depending on your stage. This whole thing isn't like the romantic sort of way where you're like, you know, you're with your like your partner and you're like, oh, let's start trying for a baby, we're ready, you know. It's like a specialist saying you guys need to have one now. It's not like that romantic sort of fantasy or fairy tale like movie kind of thing where like we got to decide and it was like a special time and all that stuff. Like I feel kind of robbed in a way. Maybe once I have my family and everything's worked out, it'll be a good thing, you know, because I can talk about all the negative things like not getting to choose for ourselves when we wanted to start having kids, like having fear, having pain, not being completely ready like financially and all that stuff. But like the plus sides are that we can start our family. So I am actually starting to come around to the plus sides. Like Ryan has been very supportive and he has been, you know, just the best really in supporting me and reminding me of the positives. So, and that's hard too. Like I've struggled with that too because like I'm so focused on the negatives, but I don't want like our future kids to grow up and think, oh, we were a burden because like mom and dad weren't ready for us. Like we will definitely be ready, you know, even if we're not ready in some ways, like maybe financially, like it won't matter in the end. Like I think we'll pull through. And this is so weird because I'm not normally this positive, but I think just getting all these feelings out and talking to the camera, I think I feel more positive right now. But yeah, like we'll get to start a family earlier. We originally wanted to have kids earlier so that our parents could meet them. So like that'll be something ticked off the list. And I guess we'll get to know them longer. So, and see how they grow up and maybe see them have kids someday. Like, you know, the older you get, like you just don't know how much of your kid's life you'll get to see. And I mean, like I'm 29 now, Ryan's 27 right now. I'm actually going to turn 30 in December. Oh. I'm trying to be positive about that too. It was really nice. In the adenomyosis support group that I've linked down below, I actually wrote to all the people in there and I was like, has anyone ever felt this way, like just looking for comfort and advice. Like this was pretty much like the day, I think, after my specialist appointment, and I was just saying like, has anyone ever told you, like has your specialist ever said that you need to have kids now, like I don't feel ready, I'm scared, and all this stuff. And a lot of women commented back and they were so lovely, like honestly so lovely. Most of them were like sort of opening my eyes. They were like, oh well, if a specialist has given you a window, you need to take it. You know, like he's pretty much like giving you your window. You need to like seriously recognize like this might be your only chance. And other women were like, I was in exactly your position 2 years ago and here's me now with my kid. That was so lovely to see. And there was a really sad story of one woman that was like, I had that advice as well and I ignored it and I continued with my career, and now I'm like 41 or 42, I don't have any kids and my career is ruined and like everything is just awful basically. She was saying she was having a really hard time in life and she doesn't even have any kids or anything. She really regrets it because now she is at a stage where she won't be able to have kids because of how her adenomyosis has progressed. Yeah, that was like a really awful thing to read, but I was also really grateful for her to share her story because it really puts it into perspective. It was also really sad, like there was one woman that commented and she was saying like, oh my god, like I'm in a lot of pain with mine and I haven't been able to see a specialist and I didn't know like my clock was ticking with all this. And I hope like with some of you guys watching too, like don't freak out, like go see a specialist. Like look on Nancy's Nook, they have lists of all these kinds of specialists in all kinds of locations. I think it's mainly a US based site, but they also had resources for people in Australia and specialists you can see. So I think it goes pretty much all around the world, mainly in the US. So if you guys are struggling with your periods and they're very painful, don't wait. Like go and see the specialist, go and get the diagnosis. Don't stop at endometriosis. Make sure you get like an actual scan of your uterus with like a proper technician that can do it, because there are only certain kinds of technicians that can do it that are trained in it. And make sure you don't have adenomyosis, because I've also learned that I think it's around 50% of people with endometriosis have adenomyosis as well. So if you have endometriosis, you've already been diagnosed for it or they suspect it, go and actually go and get it properly diagnosed and get adenomyosis like checked on or off the list as well. Like make sure you get that tested. There needs to be more research done on this and just in women's health in general, because I feel like we've been left out, if I'm honest. Like what I was saying before with hormonal birth control, like is that really the best option? Like there's so many side effects. You guys probably won't see this until I'm actually pregnant, which will be so weird, and then I'll be able to finally talk about it and release this video, because right now like yeah, like we've only told our parents and like just a few close friends, and I guess at this point I just don't know how much my life will change. I think everything will change. Even if you don't have these conditions, endometriosis and adenomyosis, I hope this video has helped enlighten you on what it kind of is and the struggles some people can have with it. If you are on this journey with me and you have endometriosis and adenomyosis, like my love like goes out to you guys. No matter what stage of your journey you are on, I really hope you guys are doing okay and you've got this. Like I'm here, I'm rooting for you. Like you can do this. So if you guys are on this journey with me, leave a comment below. I'd love to read some of your stories. Maybe we can make it like a little support group in the comments. Love to all you guys. Thank you for watching and I'll see you again very soon. Bye.